we're going to understand how I can use one unit, which is a square, to understand how many I have in each shape. The first thing that we need to understand is the difference between rows and columns, okay? When I think of a row, I think of when I'm going to the movie theater. You sit in rows. So they go this way. I'm going to write the word rows. Okay? Thinking about a movie theater, I know that people sit in rows like this. So we're pretending those are the chairs. Okay? There's another way for us to understand what the difference between rows and columns are. If I know rows go this way, columns go the other way. So the way I'm going to show you is if I write column, it goes like this. Okay? Columns go the other way. They go up and down. And this is how I remember the difference between rows and columns. I think about rows are like movie theaters, so I start that off first. And then I think about columns going the other way, okay? And I write it in there so that way I have an easier time remembering which is what way, okay? So my columns go this way. And my rows go the other way. Today we're going to figure out how many of these boxes, which I'm going to use for my unit, they're all going to be the same. And I want to figure out how many of these boxes fit inside this shape. And then how many are in each row and how many are in each column. Okay? So I went ahead and I cut pieces that are exactly the same. You will not have to do that. I actually am going to make the activity, so all you have to do is drag in the picture so that way you can figure out how many squares are there, okay? So I'm going to do this. Ready? First I'm going to fill up my entire box. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm noticing that 6 square tiles fill my box, okay? But how many columns is that? How many rows is that? So if I'm thinking about columns, I'm thinking about how many times they go up and down. So how many times am I seeing them go up and down? So this is 1 column. This is 2 columns, and this is 3 columns. So the number of columns I have is 3. Rows go the opposite way. I'm not going up and down, I'm going across. So how many different times did my rows go across? I have 1 row, 2 rows, okay? So there's 2 total rows. I want to be careful. Just because I wrote columns here, you might also want to draw an arrow so you can remember that columns go this way. I don't want to put columns on the side and then start counting because then I'll get mixed up, okay? So thinking about movie theater rows and up and down as columns. The last thing they're asking me to do is count how many square tiles I have. I did that in the beginning by matching all of my shapes together or putting all of my squares there. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I have a total of 6 square tiles. So looking down here, I'm going to do the same activity, but they did not start by putting 1 square tile in. I, as a mathematician, have to figure out how many square tiles go there. So I'm going to do that. Okay? Remember, I have rows and then columns. Okay? So maybe I can write right here, rows, go this way, right? Like a movie theater. And then columns. Oops. And that goes up and down. Okay. So I'm going to start by just placing my square tiles in. 1, 2, and I bet you can pretty much guess how many are going to be in here just by looking at it. Just to make sure, 3 and 4. So I know I have a total of 4 square tiles, so I can write that down here, 4 square tiles. Now I have to figure out how many rows and how many columns. So the number of rows and the number of columns. Rows go this way, so I have 1 row, so I can kind of drag my hand across and maybe put a number 1. Drag my hand across and do another number 1. Add them together, and I'm going to get 2 rows. Columns go the other way, right? So columns starting this way, they're going up and down. So how many times are they going up and down? So I have 1 row, 2 rows, and I'm going to count them together, and I get 2 columns. So I have 2 rows, 2 columns, okay? So taking a look at number 2 right here, I'm going to use the same things, right? I'm going to figure out how many total rows I have, how many columns I have, and then how many total square tiles I have, okay? So if I use my pieces, I can figure out how many total squares I have, which is how I like to start. So 1, 2, and you can pretty much guess how many there's going to be, right? 3, okay? So I'm going to, under my total, this is the total squares, I write 3, okay? Remember, rows go this way. How many rows are going this way? I only have 1 row. So I'm going to put the number 1, okay? This is where it can get a little tricky. Columns go up and down. So how many different squares are going up and down in each area? So let's see here. I have 1, 2, 3 columns. So even though I have 1 row, it's still possible to have 3 columns, okay? So let me kind of show you. If I kind of draw dotted lines, which is another strategy you can do, you can see I have 1, 2, 3 columns and only 1 row, okay? You're going to take some time and think about how you can create rows and columns and know the differences between the two, okay? Your work is going to be rearranging tiles. I'm going to have these for you, and you're just going to place them inside each box and then be able to tell me how many rows and how many columns there are.